From the 1940s through the 1960s, American lunch counters served 25 sandwiches that defined an era. Sandwiches that were part of everyday life at Woolworth's diners. Then something happened. All 25 sandwiches that were once famous started vanishing without explanation. The first 5 in this video are completely forgotten. Now we are about to rediscover these 25 forgotten lunch counter sandwiches from the 1950s, starting with the first one nobody ever heard of. Beef jelly sandwiches were made in the 1920s through the 1950s, when butchers needed to use every part of the animal to avoid waste. This sandwich sounds impossible until you understand how desperate families were to stretch their food budget. Butchers took the cheapest cuts nobody wanted: beef heart, pig feet, and beef tongue, boiled them together in a giant pot for hours until the meat turned tender and the connective tissue broke down into gelatin. Then they poured the mixture into pans and chilled it overnight in the icebox. The result was a firm, gelatinous loaf that could be sliced like cold cuts. Thin slices were layered on bread with mustard, mayonnaise, or pickles to mask the metallic taste of organ meat. The texture was slippery and rubbery. The flavor was strong and gamey. Children hated it, but ate it anyway, because wasting food meant going hungry. Beef jelly sandwiches cost almost nothing to make, because butchers gave away the scraps for pennies. The sandwich disappeared the moment families could afford real lunch meat. Nobody wanted to remember eating jellied organ meat on bread when bologna and ham became affordable. Emergency sandwich earned its name because it combined whatever ingredients families already had in the pantry when money ran out. Before payday, this sandwich was invented during the mid-1930s, when grocery trips were rare and cupboards stayed half empty for weeks. Mothers mixed hard-boiled eggs with diced pickles, yellow mustard, and peanut butter into a thick, chunky paste. If the mixture turned too stiff to spread, they thinned it with pickle juice or vinegar. The combination tasted strange and looked worse. The eggs provided protein. The peanut butter added fat and calories. The pickles contributed acidity and crunch. Together, they created a filling that stuck to your ribs even if it didn't taste good. Children ate it without complaint, because complaining meant admitting they were poor. The sandwich appeared on tables across America during the Depression and survived into the 1940s, when rationing made fresh ingredients scarce again. Emergency sandwiches cost less than 10 cents to make and fed a family of 4. The recipe vanished after World War II, when grocery stores restocked and families could afford to buy real sandwich fillings. Nobody wanted to remember mixing eggs with peanut butter out of desperation. Frosted sandwich loaf looked like a fancy layer cake, but contained nothing sweet inside. This monstrosity was served at 1950s tea parties and ladies' luncheons, when impressing guests mattered more than taste. Women spent hours assembling layers of white bread, alternating with egg salad, chicken salad, deviled ham, and chopped pickles. The entire loaf was frosted with a thick mixture of mayonnaise and cream cheese, then decorated with radish roses, olive slices, and fresh parsley to look like a wedding cake. The result was visually stunning, but texturally overwhelming. Every bite delivered multiple conflicting flavors: sweet cream cheese, tangy egg salad, salty deviled ham, sour pickles. The mayonnaise frosting was heavy and rich. One slice filled you up for hours. Guests admired the presentation, but secretly dreaded eating it. The sandwich was popular because it looked expensive and sophisticated, even though the ingredients were cheap. Frosted sandwich loaves disappeared in the 1960s, when women stopped hosting elaborate tea parties and started working outside the home. Nobody had time to assemble a 4-layer sandwich loaf just to impress neighbors. The recipe died because it required too much effort for a meal that tasted mediocre at best.
Many of you have been asking where to find these recipes. We've gathered hundreds of them from the Depression era through the 1970s in our cookbook, Grandma's Kitchen. Complete instructions, pro tips in 10 chapters. Link is in the description below. Now, let's get back to the video.
Makeshift sandwich was not a single recipe, but a category that covered anything spread between bread when nothing else existed in the house. This sandwich was born during the Great Depression, when buying groceries became a luxury most families could not afford. Bread was cheap. A loaf cost 5 cents and lasted all week. Filling was the problem, so families spread whatever they found in the pantry: ketchup sandwiches, butter and salt sandwiches, sugar sandwiches, mustard sandwiches, plain pepper sandwiches. These combinations sound unappetizing because they were. Nobody ate ketchup on bread because it tasted good. They ate it because bread alone was too dry to swallow, and ketchup was free from diners and restaurants. Children brought these sandwiches to school in brown paper bags and ate them quietly so classmates would not see. The shame of eating condiment sandwiches stuck with Depression survivors for decades. Makeshift sandwiches disappeared the moment families could afford peanut butter and jelly. Some elderly people still eat butter and sugar sandwiches for nostalgia, but nobody serves ketchup sandwiches to guests. The recipe died because remembering it meant remembering poverty so deep that condiments counted as sandwich filling. Potted meat sandwiches used canned meat, preserved in oil and salt, that lasted for months without refrigeration. This sandwich was a lunchbox staple from the 1920s through the 1950s, when families needed shelf-stable protein. Potted meat came in small tin cans labeled with generic names like potted beef or potted chicken. The meat inside was heavily processed, ground into a smooth paste, mixed with gelatin and preservatives, packed with enough salt to make it almost inedible without dilution. Mothers spread the thick gray paste on white bread with mayonnaise or mustard to mask the metallic taste. The texture was slippery and greasy. The flavor was salty and vaguely meaty, but tasted nothing like fresh beef or chicken. Children ate it because their mothers packed it, not because they liked it. Potted meat was popular because it was cheap and convenient. One small can cost 10 cents and made 4 sandwiches. The meat never spoiled. Families could stock up and always have sandwich filling ready. Potted meat sandwiches vanished when home refrigerators became common in the 1950s. Families stopped buying canned meat once they could afford fresh deli slices. The sandwich died because it tasted like poverty. Ari Hook 5 down, 20 to go. The first 5 sandwiches came from desperation: jellied organ meat, eggs mixed with peanut butter, frosted loaves that looked like cake. The next 5 push even deeper into forgotten lunch counter history. Number 7 combines 2 ingredients nobody would pair today. Keep watching. Mock ham salad sandwich was invented when families wanted ham salad but could not afford ham. This sandwich became popular during World War II, when meat rationing made real ham a luxury reserved for special occasions. Mothers chopped bologna or Spam into tiny cubes and mixed it with mayonnaise, yellow mustard, sweet pickle relish, and a pinch of sugar. The result looked and tasted surprisingly similar to real ham salad. The bologna provided the pink color. The relish added sweetness. The mustard contributed tang. Mixed together, the filling fooled children into thinking they were eating something special. The texture was chunky and creamy. The flavor was sweet and salty. It tasted like a celebration, even though it was made from the cheapest lunch meat available. Mock ham salad sandwiches appeared at church potlucks and school cafeterias throughout the 1940s and 1950s. Women swapped recipes and debated whether bologna or Spam made better mock ham. The sandwich disappeared in the 1960s when ham became affordable again. Families stopped making substitutes once they could buy the real thing. The recipe died because eating mock ham reminded people of rationing and sacrifice. Once abundance returned, nobody looked back. Egg and sardine sandwich combined 2 of the cheapest protein sources available during the 1920s and 1930s. This sandwich was born from necessity, when fresh meat disappeared from working-class tables and families needed protein to survive. A can of sardines cost 5 cents. A dozen eggs cost 20 cents. Together they provided enough protein to feed a family for days. Mothers mashed hard-boiled eggs with canned sardines, a spoonful of mayonnaise, and a squeeze of lemon juice to cut through the fishiness. The mixture was chunky and oily. The flavor was intensely fishy, with a metallic aftertaste that lingered for hours. The texture was mushy and slippery. Children gagged on the strong taste, but forced it down because refusing food meant going hungry. Egg and sardine sandwiches were packed in lunch pails and carried to factories and construction sites. Men ate them cold during lunch breaks. The sandwich provided energy to work all day. Egg and sardine sandwiches vanished after World War II when chicken and turkey became affordable. Nobody missed the fishy, metallic taste. The recipe died because it reminded people of hard times when sardines and eggs were the only protein they could afford. Peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwich was a Depression-era creation that survived into the 1960s, despite tasting terrible. This sandwich was invented when families could afford peanut butter, but not jelly or jam. Fruit preserves cost 3 times more than peanut butter. Mayonnaise was cheaper and lasted longer, so mothers spread peanut butter on one slice of bread and mayonnaise on the other. The combination was creamy and rich. The peanut butter provided protein and sweetness. The mayonnaise added fat and calories. Together they created a filling sandwich that stuck to the roof of your mouth and coated your throat with grease. The texture was thick and pasty. The flavor was strange, not sweet like peanut butter and jelly, not savory like a normal sandwich, just oily and bland. Children ate it because it was better than bread alone. Adults ate it because it was filling. Peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwiches were packed in school lunches across America for decades. The sandwich disappeared in the 1970s when jelly became affordable and everyone switched to peanut butter and jelly. The recipe died because nobody wanted to eat mayonnaise with peanut butter once better options existed. Broiled soup sandwich was invented in the 1960s when Campbell's Soup launched an aggressive marketing campaign encouraging families to use condensed soup as sandwich filling. This sandwich was featured in magazine advertisements and newspaper recipe columns across America. The instructions were simple. Open a can of cream of chicken soup or beef stew. Spread it thick on a slice of bread. Top with a slice of cheese. Broil in the oven until the cheese melted and the edges turned golden. The result was sloppy, soggy, and visually unappealing. The soup soaked into the bread and made it fall apart. The cheese helped hold everything together but could not fix the fundamental problem. Soup was meant to be eaten with a spoon, not spread on bread. The flavor was decent, creamy and savory, but the texture was all wrong. Too wet, too mushy. Campbell's pushed the recipe hard because they wanted to sell more soup. Families tried it once and never made it again. The sandwich disappeared by the early 1970s when the marketing campaign ended. Nobody missed it. The recipe died because soup belongs in a bowl, not on bread, and everyone knew it. A cold meatloaf sandwich was the inevitable result of making meatloaf for dinner. Meatloaf always produced leftovers. This sandwich was a Depression-era staple that survived well into the 1980s, when home cooking was still common. Meatloaf was cheap to make. Ground beef mixed with breadcrumbs, onions, and ketchup stretched to feed 8 people for under $2. Every family ate meatloaf at least once a week. The leftovers went into sandwiches the next day. Mothers sliced the cold meatloaf thin and layered it on white bread with ketchup, mustard, or mayonnaise. Some added lettuce and tomato. Others ate it plain. The meatloaf was dense and heavy. The texture was firm and sliceable. The flavor was savory and slightly sweet from the ketchup mixed into the meat. Cold meatloaf sandwiches tasted better than cold meatloaf eaten plain. The bread soaked up the grease and made it less overwhelming. These sandwiches were packed in lunchboxes and served at kitchen tables across America for decades. Cold meatloaf sandwiches faded in the 1990s when families stopped making meatloaf regularly. The sandwich died because meatloaf itself became old-fashioned, and nobody had leftovers to use anymore. 10 down, 15 to go. The first 10 sandwiches were survival food disguised as lunch. Jellied meat, eggs with sardines, soup spread on bread. The next 10 start to look more familiar but still vanished completely. Number 11 uses an organ meat nobody eats today. Keep watching. Beef tongue sandwich was one of the most popular lunch counter orders from the 1920s through the 1950s, until people started thinking about what they were actually eating. Then the sandwich died overnight. Tongue was exceptionally cheap. A whole beef tongue cost 15 to 20 cents, fed a family for days. Butchers sold it fresh, or corned like corned beef. Lunch counters bought it by the pound, boiled it for hours until tender, sliced it thin, served it on rye bread with horseradish and pickles. The texture was smooth and tender, almost silky. The flavor was rich and beefy, stronger than regular beef but not unpleasant. The problem was psychological, not taste. Once diners realized they were eating the actual tongue from a cow's mouth, the muscle that moved and tasted food, many lost their appetite completely. Children refused to eat it once they understood. Adults kept eating it because it was cheap, but they stopped ordering it in public. Beef tongue sandwiches were standard menu items. At delis and lunch counters, you could walk into any Woolworths or drugstore counter. Order a tongue sandwich. Nobody thought twice. The counterman sliced it fresh, layered it thick on rye, added spicy brown mustard, piled on pickles, wrapped it in wax paper, charged 35 cents. You ate it standing at the counter or carried it back to work. The sandwich started fading in the 1960s, when other cuts of beef became affordable, and people had choices. Tongue was cheap because nobody wanted it. Once families could afford sirloin and chuck roast, they abandoned tongue without hesitation. Modern delis still serve tongue sandwiches, mostly in Jewish delis in New York, and a few traditional butcher shops. But it is nowhere near as common as it was. Young people recoil when they hear the name. The idea of eating tongue feels primitive, disgusting, strange, even though the meat itself tastes fine. Better than bologna, better than processed lunch meat. But tongue is tongue, and most people cannot get past that. Beef tongue sandwich died because abundance gave people choices, and when given a choice, nobody picks tongue over ham or turkey. The sandwich survives only in places where tradition matters more than squeamishness, where old men still order it, and young countermen still know how to slice it. But everywhere else, the beef tongue sandwich is gone. Braunschweiburger was a German liver sausage sandwich that dominated lunch counters in immigrant neighborhoods from the 1920s through the 1960s. Then younger generations discovered they hated liver, and the sandwich died. Braunschweiger is a smoked pork liver sausage, smooth and spreadable, with a strong metallic taste that people either love or despise. No middle ground, no casual fans. In the 1950s, lunch counters served it elaborate, sliced thick, wrapped with raw bacon, secured with toothpicks, topped with paprika-dusted onion slices, mushroom caps, tomato slices, baked until the bacon crisped, then served open-faced on toasted buns, with horseradish on the side. The sandwich was impressive, flavorful, filling. The liver provided iron and protein. The bacon added smokiness and salt. The onions and mushrooms balanced the richness. The paprika added color and mild heat. Everything worked together, creating a sandwich. That tasted expensive, even though it was not. It cost 25 to 35 cents, more than a plain bologna sandwich, but still affordable for working people. German immigrants loved it because it reminded them of home, of butcher shops in Munich and Hamburg, of Sunday dinners and beer gardens. Their children tolerated it because their parents made them. Their grandchildren refused it, because liver tastes like metal and dirt, and no amount of bacon can fix that. Braunschweiger sandwiches appeared on lunch counter menus across the Midwest. Anywhere German immigrants settled, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Chicago, small-town diners, big city delis, everyone served it. The sandwich started fading in the 1970s, when the immigrant generation died, and their children stopped ordering it, stopped making it at home, stopped passing down the recipe. Younger Americans preferred turkey and roast beef, clean flavors, mild tastes, meat that did not taste like organs. Liver was too strong, too old-fashioned, too immigrant, too ethnic. In an era when assimilation mattered, eating liver sausage marked you as foreign, as different, as not quite American. So second and third generation German Americans stopped eating it, stopped ordering it, let it die. Braunschweiger itself still exists. You can find it in German grocery stores and a few specialty delis. Banana sandwich was a Depression-era treat that children begged for when they grew tired of peanut butter every single day. This sandwich was as simple as it sounds, sliced bananas on bread, nothing else. Sometimes mothers added butter if they had extra, or sprinkled sugar on top for special occasions. But most days, it was just banana and bread, white bread or whole wheat, whichever was cheapest that week. The sandwich was popular because bananas were affordable during the Depression, when most fresh fruit disappeared from working-class tables. Apples cost too much, oranges were luxuries, grapes were dreams. But bananas cost 5 cents per pound, sometimes less. They shipped well from Central America, lasted days without refrigeration, required no cooking, just peel and slice, perfect for poor families. Children loved banana sandwiches because they were sweet, soft, easy to eat. The natural sugar gave them energy. The bread filled their stomachs. Together they created a lunch that felt like a treat. Even though it cost almost nothing, mothers packed banana sandwiches in school lunches, wrapped in wax paper, tucked into brown bags. The bananas turned brown by lunchtime. The bread got soggy, but children ate them anyway, because brown bananas still tasted better than ketchup sandwiches, or butter and salt sandwiches, or nothing at all. Banana sandwiches survived through the 1950s, appearing in school cafeterias, home kitchens, lunch boxes. Children still requested them. Adults still made them. But the sandwich started fading in the 1960s, when peanut butter and jelly became the standard, and plain banana sandwiches felt too simple, too poor, too Depression-era. Parents stopped packing them because other kids made fun of the simple lunch, the plain filling, the lack of peanut butter. Banana sandwiches became a mark of poverty, again, and nobody wanted that mark. Modern children eat bananas as snacks, sliced into cereal, blended into smoothies, spread with peanut butter, but rarely on bread alone. The plain banana sandwich feels old-fashioned, boring, insufficient, something their great-grandmothers ate when nothing better existed. The sandwich died because better options arrived. Peanut butter and banana, Nutella and banana, almond butter and banana. Welsh rarebit was not a sandwich in the traditional sense, but an open-faced creation that dominated lunch counters from the 1940s. Through the 1970s, then everyone discovered grilled cheese, and Welsh rarebit disappeared. This dish was essentially a cheese fondue sauce poured over toasted bread. The sauce was made with sharp cheddar cheese, grated fine, melted slowly. Dark beer added for depth, Worcestershire sauce for umami, dry mustard for tang, hot sauce or cayenne pepper for kick. The cheese melted into the beer, creating a smooth, tangy, slightly boozy sauce that was poured thick over sourdough or rye toast. Some lunch counters broiled it, until the top turned golden and bubbly. Others served it immediately, hot and runny. The result was rich and filling. One serving felt like eating an entire grilled cheese, plus extra cheese. The flavor was sharp and complex. The beer added a malty depth. The Worcestershire added savory richness. The hot sauce added a subtle heat. It was a grown-up version of grilled cheese, sophisticated, flavorful, impressive. Welsh rarebit was popular because it felt fancy, but used cheap ingredients. A block of cheddar cost 30 cents. A bottle of beer cost 15 cents. Together they made 6 servings, less than 10 cents per person. Lunch counters charged 50 cents per plate, and made a profit. The sandwich appeared on menus everywhere: diners, drugstores, department store cafeterias, Woolworths, corner lunch counters. It was standard fare, a lunch staple, as common as tuna salad, as expected as tomato soup. Welsh rarebit started fading in the 1970s, when fast food took over, and people wanted quick, simple, familiar. Grilled cheese was easier, faster, less messy. You could eat it with your hands. Walk and eat, drive and eat. Welsh rarebit required a fork, a plate, a napkin. Sitting down, slowing down. Fast food culture killed it. Nobody had time for cheese sauce anymore. Nobody wanted to sit at a counter and eat with a fork when they could grab a burger and eat in the car. The recipe still exists in old cookbooks and a few traditional British pubs, but American lunch counters stopped serving it. The dish died because convenience won. Grilled cheese was good enough. Welsh rarebit was better, but better did not matter. Oyster Club sandwich was a luxury item in the 1920s that became a common lunch counter staple by the 1940s. Then oyster prices skyrocketed, and the sandwich vanished overnight. In the early 1900s, oysters were street food, cheap, plentiful, abundant, sold from carts, served at bars, fried at lunch counters, shucked fresh at markets. A dozen oysters cost 10 cents. Fried oysters were even cheaper, because vendors used small ones. The rejects. The Oyster Club sandwich was built like a traditional club. 3 layers of toasted white bread, fried oysters on the bottom layer, crispy bacon in the middle layer, lettuce and tomato on top, spicy horseradish mayo spread on every layer, the whole thing held together with toothpicks, cut into quarters, served with potato chips, and a pickle spear. The sandwich was massive, messy, delicious. The oysters were crispy outside, tender inside, briny and sweet. The bacon added smoke and salt. The horseradish mayo added heat and tang. The lettuce added crunch. The tomato added acidity. Everything worked together, creating a sandwich that tasted expensive, even though it was not. Lunch counters charged 35 to 50 cents, depending on location. It was one of the pricier menu items, but still affordable for working people, still within reach. The Oyster Club was popular at seaside diners, East Coast lunch counters, Gulf Coast cafeterias. Anywhere oysters were fresh and plentiful. It was a special occasion sandwich, something you ordered on payday, or when celebrating, or when you wanted to feel fancy. Not an everyday lunch, but a treat, a reward. Oyster Club sandwiches started disappearing in the 1950s when oyster populations crashed from overfishing, pollution, habitat destruction, industrial runoff. Oyster beds that had sustained communities for centuries died in a decade. Prices tripled, then quintupled. Oysters went from street food to luxury ingredient. Lunch counters could not afford them anymore, could not justify the cost. The sandwich disappeared from menus. Customers stopped ordering it because 50 cents became $2, then $5, 15 down, 10 to go. The first 15 sandwiches vanished because tastes changed, ingredients became expensive, or people simply forgot they existed. The next 10 are more familiar but still disappeared from lunch counters. Number 17 was invented by Campbell's Soup. Number 20 uses processed loaf. Keep watching. Friday Burger was a 1950s invention designed for Catholics who could not eat meat on Fridays, but wanted something that tasted like a hamburger. This sandwich was marketed heavily by Campbell's Soup and Tuna companies, appeared in magazine advertisements, newspaper recipe columns, church bulletins, even printed on tuna can labels. The Friday Burger was made with canned tuna, not ground beef. The tuna was drained completely, pressed dry, mixed with breadcrumbs, minced onion, diced dill pickles, Miracle Whip instead of mayo, salt, pepper, celery salt, formed into patties, baked at 350 degrees until firm enough to handle, then topped with American cheese and served on toasted hamburger buns, with all the burger fixings, lettuce, tomato, ketchup, mustard. The goal was to mimic the experience of eating a hamburger without using meat. The patties looked like burgers, shaped like burgers, served like burgers, smelled vaguely like burgers, but tasted like tuna salad, compressed and baked. The texture was dense and dry, crumbly, nothing like a real burger. The flavor was fishy, slightly sweet from the Miracle Whip, salty from the pickles, tangy from the celery salt. It was not bad, just not a burger, not even close. The Friday Burger was popular in Catholic households and church cafeterias, where meatless Fridays were observed strictly. Families ate it every week. Some grew to love it, others tolerated it, because it was better than fish sticks, again, better than tuna casserole, again. At least it felt like a burger, even if it was not. The sandwich cost about 20 cents to make. One can of tuna cost 15 cents. Breadcrumbs and pickles were pantry staples. It fed 4 people, for less than $1, cheaper than any beef burger. Mothers could feed their families, follow church rules, and stay on budget. Friday burgers disappeared in the 1960s, after Vatican II relaxed the rules, and Catholics no longer had to abstain from meat every Friday. Super Burger was a Campbell's Soup marketing scheme disguised as a recipe, invented in the late 1950s when Campbell's wanted to sell more condensed soup by convincing Americans to put soup in everything, including hamburgers. The Super Burger recipe appeared everywhere, in magazine ads, newspaper inserts, radio commercials, television spots, even printed on soup can labels. The marketing was relentless, aggressive, inescapable. The instructions were simple: mix ground beef with breadcrumbs, minced onion, an egg, and half a can of Campbell's condensed soup. Cream of mushroom was most common, but the ads suggested alternatives: cream of chicken, onion soup, even gumbo for Creole burgers, tomato soup for Italian style. Form the mixture into patties, brown them in a skillet, then add the remaining soup, mixed with half a can of water. Simmer until cooked through. Serve on hamburger buns, with the soupy gravy poured over the top, spilling onto the plate. The result was a wet, sloppy, flavorful burger that tasted like Campbell's Soup, because it was Campbell's Soup, with beef added. The texture was soft, almost mushy. The soup kept the patties moist, but also made them fall apart, crumble in your hands. The flavor was decent, savory, creamy, familiar, because everyone knew what cream of mushroom soup tasted like. It was in every pantry, in every kitchen, in every casserole. Why not burgers too? Super burgers were popular for a few years. Families made them weekly, because Campbell's ads ran constantly, convincing housewives that this was modern cooking, scientific cooking, better than old-fashioned recipes. Condensed soup was convenient, shelf-stable, pre-seasoned. Why make gravy from scratch when Campbell's did it for you? but the trend faded quickly. By the mid-1960s, nobody made super burgers anymore. Because they were messy, the buns got soggy, the soup dripped everywhere, made a mess on the plate, on your hands, on your shirt, and honestly, they tasted like soup. Not burgers. People wanted burgers that tasted like beef. Charred and smoky, not creamy and mushroomy. The super burger died because it was a bad idea, pushed by aggressive marketing. That worked briefly, then collapsed, when people realized. Pimento cheese sandwich was called the caviar of the South and dominated lunch counters across the southern United States from the 1920s through the 1980s. Then it started fading, as younger generations discovered they preferred plain cheddar or didn't care about tradition. Pimento cheese is a spread made from sharp cheddar cheese, grated fine by hand, mixed with mayonnaise, diced pimentos from a jar, a pinch of cayenne pepper, sometimes a splash of Worcestershire, sometimes a bit of cream cheese, for extra smoothness. The result is bright orange, creamy, tangy, slightly sweet from the pimentos, with a little kick from the cayenne. Southern mothers made it by the jar, kept it refrigerated, used it all week, on white bread for sandwiches, on crackers for snacks, stirred into macaroni, melted on burgers, spread on celery. Pimento cheese was everywhere. In every southern kitchen, lunch counters served it on toasted white bread, with lettuce and tomato, or plain, cold or grilled. Both versions were popular. The cold version was simple, creamy, refreshing, perfect for summer. The grilled version turned gooey, like a sophisticated grilled cheese, perfect for winter. The flavor was sharp and tangy, complex, more interesting than plain cheese. The pimentos added sweetness. The cayenne added heat. It was distinctly Southern, proudly Southern, a mark of regional identity. Pimento cheese sandwiches were standard lunch fare in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, the Carolinas, Tennessee, Virginia. You could order one anywhere. Gas stations, drugstores, diners, church basements, country clubs, barbecue joints, everyone served it, rich and poor alike, black and white alike. Pimento cheese crossed all boundaries. The sandwich started fading in the 1990s, when chain restaurants took over and regional foods disappeared. McDonald's did not serve pimento cheese, neither did Subway, or Wendy's, or Burger King. Deviled ham sandwich was a lunch counter staple from the 1920s through the 1970s, built around a canned meat spread that tasted like ham, mixed with hot sauce and spices, until it turned into a smooth paste, the texture of peanut butter, the color of pink clay. Deviled ham came in small cans, with a little red devil on the label. Grinning, holding a pitchfork, the Underwood Company made it. Starting in the 1860s, by the 1950s, it was in every grocery store, every pantry, every lunchbox across America. The spread was made from ground ham, vinegar, hot sauce, paprika, cayenne pepper, other spices, processed until completely smooth. No chunks, no texture, just paste. The flavor was spicy, salty, slightly smoky, with a vinegar tang that cut through the richness and masked the processed taste. Lunch counters spread it thick, on white bread, added crisp lettuce, sliced tomato, dill pickles, mayonnaise on both slices. The sandwich was cheap, filling, flavorful, more interesting than bologna, spicier than plain ham. One small can cost 15 cents. Made 4 sandwiches, fed a family for less than a quarter. Deviled ham sandwiches were packed in lunch pails, carried to factories and construction sites, served at church socials, sold at lunch counters, everywhere. The sandwich was so common that nobody thought about it. It was just lunch, like peanut butter and jelly, or bologna and cheese. Standard, expected, normal. Deviled ham started fading in the 1980s, when people became suspicious of canned meat spreads. They started reading ingredient labels, seeing words they could not pronounce, started asking questions. What parts of the ham were in deviled ham? Why was it smooth like paste? Why did it last for years without refrigeration? What were all those chemicals? The answers were not reassuring. Deviled ham contains mechanically separated pork, which means pork paste scraped from bones, with machines, corn syrup for sweetness, sodium nitrite for color, preservatives for shelf life. Olive loaf sandwich was a mystery meat creation that dominated lunch counters and school cafeterias from the 1940s through the 1980s. Then children grew up and refused to feed it to their own kids. Olive loaf is a processed luncheon meat made from pork, chicken, sometimes beef, sometimes turkey, sometimes olive, ground together into a paste, mixed with pimento-stuffed green olive, chopped fine, formed into a pink loaf, with bright green olive slice suspended throughout, like specimens in gelatin, sliced thin at the deli counter. The result looks like bologna, dotted with alien green circles. The texture is smooth, slightly rubbery, slightly spongy. Like all processed lunch meat, the flavor is salty, mildly meaty, vaguely ham-like, with a briny kick from the olive. Some people loved it. Most people tolerated it. Children ate it because it was lunch, not because they enjoyed it. Olive loaf was cheap. Cheaper than ham or turkey, even cheaper than bologna. A pound cost 35 cents. In the 1950s, it lasted a week in the refrigerator. Mothers bought it because it stretched the grocery budget, made 5 school lunches for less than 50 cents. Lunch counters served it because it was profitable. Schools used it because it was affordable, and contracts were cheap. The olive loaf sandwich was simple. 2 slices of white bread, mayonnaise spread thin, iceberg lettuce if you were lucky, 2 or 3 slices of olive loaf. That was it. No cheese, no tomato, no mustard, just bread. Mayo, mystery meat. Children ate at school lunch tables, traded it, threw it away, fed it to dogs, anything to avoid eating, but some ate because it was food, and food mattered. The olives were the strangest part, salty and rubber, suspended in pink meat. It looked wrong, tasted wrong, felt wrong, but it was protein, and protein mattered, even if that protein came from questionable sources. Olive loaf sandwiches started disappearing in the 1990s, when parents began reading labels and asking questions. What exactly is olive loaf? What parts of what animals? What are all these chemicals? The answer was unsettling. Mechanically separated chicken, pork byproducts, corn syrup, sodium nitrite, preservative, not food, but a food-like product, engineered, processed, created. Parents stopped buying it. Schools stopped serving it. Lunch counters dropped from menus. Olive loaf still exists in the deli case, at budget grocery stores, next to pickle loaf and macaroni and cheese loaf and other mystery meats. But nobody buys it except very old people who grew up eating it and cannot break the habit, cannot imagine lunch without it. The olive loaf sandwich died because a new generation looked at it, really looked, read the label, asked questions, and decided they would rather eat literally anything else. The sandwich vanished, and nobody mourned, nobody missed, nobody wanted it back. 20 down, 5 to go. These last 5 sandwiches are the most recognizable, the ones that almost survived into the modern era, but faded anyway. Number 21 uses organ meat. Number 23 is still served in the South. Number 25 is the only one that survived. Let us finish. Chopped liver sandwich was a Jewish deli staple that non-Jewish Americans tried once, made a face, and never ordered again. But in Jewish neighborhoods from the 1920s through today, chopped liver remained a delicacy, a tradition, a taste of home, a connection to ancestors. Chopped liver is made from chicken liver or beef liver or a combination, sautéed slowly in chicken fat, called schmalt, with onion, lots of onions, caramelized until gold, mixed with hard-boiled egg, chopped fine, salt, pepper, sometimes a touch of sugar, chopped by hand, with a curved blade, or ground smooth in a meat grinder, depending on family tradition, regional preference. The result is a thick, brown, intensely flavored spread that tastes like iron and earth and richness and history. The flavor is strong, metallic, savory, umami-rich. Not for everyone, not for most people. People either love it or hate it violently. No middle ground, no casual fan, no polite tolerance. Jewish delis spread it thick, on fresh rye bread, sometimes with lettuce, usually plain. Served it with half-sour pickle, coleslaw on the side. A side of spicy brown mustard. The sandwich was filling, nutritious, packed with iron and protein, vitamins A and B. Immigrants ate it because it reminded them of Europe, of shtetls and cities, of mothers and grandmothers, of Friday night dinner, Sabbath meal. Their children ate it because tradition mattered, because respect mattered, because you ate what your parent, their grandchildren, started questioning, started refusing, because liver tastes like liver, and modern palate, American palate, prefer milder flavor, cleaner taste, less intensity. Chopped liver sandwiches were never mainstream outside Jewish community. They were exotic, strange, foreign, too strong, too ethnic. Lunch counters in Gentile neighborhoods did not serve them, would not serve them. Customers did not want them, would not order them. But in Jewish delis, they were standard, essential, as common as pastrami, or corned beef, or matzo ball soup. The sandwich started fading in the 1980s and 1990s, when younger Jewish Americans assimilated fully, completely, and stopped eating traditional food. They wanted bagel and lox, which felt modern, cosmopolitan, acceptable, not chopped liver, which felt old, immigrant, embarrassed, too Jewish, in a time when being too Jewish felt uncomfortable. Jewish delis still serve chopped liver sandwich in New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Chicago, Philadelphia. Anywhere Jews settle, older customers order them. Younger customers order pastrami instead. The sandwich is not dead, but it is fading, slowly, generational, as the people who grew up eating it age out, die off, and nobody replaces them. Nobody younger wants to eat chicken liver. Chopped liver sandwiches will probably survive as long as Jewish delis exist, as long as tradition matters, but their popularity is shrinking. Their customer base is aging. The sandwich belongs to a different era, a different generation, a different world that is disappearing, one deli at a time. Cream cheese and jelly sandwich was a Tea Party staple and children's lunch favorite from the 1940s through the 1970s. Then peanut butter won and cream cheese lost. This sandwich was simple, elegant, dainty. White bread, crusts removed carefully, spread thick with cream cheese, Philadelphia brand usually, topped with grape jelly or strawberry jam, sometimes orange marmalade, cut into triangle or fingers, 4%, served on doily at afternoon tea, birthday party, baby shower, ladies' luncheon, bridal showers. The cream cheese was tangy, rich, smooth, cold. The jelly was sweet, fruity, sticky, bright. Together they created a sweet and tangy combination that tasted like cheesecake on bread, like dessert, but served as lunch. Children loved it because it was sweet but not as sticky as peanut butter and jelly, did not glue their mouths shut. Adults loved it because it felt fancy, sophisticated, more elegant than peanut butter, more appropriate for company. Cream cheese and jelly sandwiches were served at department store tea room, hotel restaurant, country club luncheon, bridge parties, book club meetings, anywhere women gathered for a light meal, polite conversation. The sandwich was delicate, dainty, feminine, pretty. Not a working man's lunch, but a lady's refreshment, a social food, an occasion food. It cost more than peanut butter and jelly. Cream cheese was expensive. A 3-ounce package cost 25 cents in the 1950s compared to peanut butter at 15 cents per jar. So cream cheese and jelly was a special occasion food, not everyday lunch, not brown bag lunch, not working lunch. The sandwich started fading in the 1970s, when Tea Party became old-fashioned, outdated, unnecessary. Women entered the workforce full-time, stopped hosting lunch, stopped serving dainty finger sandwiches, stopped removing crust, stopped cutting triangles. The formality disappeared, the ritual disappeared, and the sandwich went with it. Cream cheese and jelly still shows up occasionally at children's birthday party or bridal shower in conservative area, traditional family, but it is rare, uncommon, noteworthy. Peanut butter and jelly is cheaper, more familiar, more acceptable, more American. Cream cheese and jelly feels dated, precious, like something your grandmother served. At Bridge Club in 1965, with cloth napkins and china plate. The sandwich died because casual replaced formal, because working replaced hosting, because nobody has time anymore for tea party and finger sandwich and removing crust and cutting perfect triangle. The cream cheese and jelly sandwich belongs to an era when entertaining meant white glove, pearl, cloth napkin, polite conversation, and sandwiches cut into perfect triangle, arranged on doily. That era is gone, buried, forgotten, and the sandwich went with it. Nobody mourns the loss, nobody misses the formality, except maybe a few old women who remember when hosting mattered. Ham salad sandwich is one of the few 1950s lunch counter sandwiches still served today, but it is fading fast, disappearing slowly as younger generations discover they prefer sliced ham to ground ham, mixed with mayonnaise, chopped into paste. Ham salad is made from leftover ham, chopped fine, or ground coarse, mixed with mayonnaise, plenty of mayonnaise, sweet pickle relish, yellow mustard, a pinch of sugar, sometimes diced celery for crunch, for texture. The result is pink, chunky, sweet, tangy, creamy, spreadable. The texture is similar to tuna salad or chicken salad, but meatier, saltier, pinker, more substantial. Ham salad was invented to use leftover, to stretch food, to waste nothing. Every Sunday, families baked ham for dinner, a whole ham, bone-in, glazed with brown sugar or pineapple. Monday, they made ham sandwiches with thick slices, cold ham, fresh from the fridge. Tuesday, the ham was almost gone, except scrap, odd end, pieces too small to slice cleanly. Mothers ground or chopped them fine, mixed them with mayo, made ham salad, stretched one ham into 3 days of meals, 4 days, sometimes 5. Lunch counters did the same. Exactly the same. They bought whole ham, sliced them for sandwiches, ground the scraps into ham salad, sold it cheaper than sliced ham, but still made profit. Nothing was wasted. Every scrap, every end, every odd piece became ham salad. Ham salad sandwiches were standard menu items at diners, lunch counter, cafeteria, drugstore soda fountain. Cheap, profitable, popular, reliable, served on white bread or toast with lettuce, maybe tomato, pickles on the side, potato chip. The sandwich cost 35 to 50 cents, less than sliced ham, more than bologna. Fair price, good value. Ham salad started fading when pre-sliced deli meat became standard, became normal, became expected. Families stopped buying whole ham, started buying plastic package of pre-sliced ham, thin slice, even thick, no scrap, no leftover, no need for ham salad. No reason to make it. Lunch count stopped making it when customers stopped ordering it, when younger customers never learned to order. The sandwich still exists at old-fashioned diners, southern cafes, small-town lunch counter, church basement potluck. Older customers still order it, still request, still enjoy. Younger customers do not know it exists, have never heard the name. Ham salad is disappearing, fading, dying, slowly, generationally, as the generation that grew up eating it ages out, dies off, and nobody younger replaces them. Nobody orders it, nobody makes it, nobody cares. The sandwich is not dead yet, but it is dying. You can still find if you look at the right places: old diner, church basement, potluck lunches, VFW hall, senior centers, anywhere. The older generation still gather, still eat, still remember, but everywhere else, ham salad is gone, replaced by sliced deli ham on croissant with fancy mustard and arugula. Chicken salad sandwich is still served everywhere today, but the 1950s version is completely gone, vanished, forgot, because the 1950s version contained whipped cream, and nobody knows why. Nobody remembers why. Nobody can explain why whipped cream belonged in chicken salad, but it did. The original chicken salad sandwich from 1950s lunch counter and department store tea room was made with cubed chicken breast, poached and cooled, mayonnaise, sliced celery, halved red grape, toasted sliced almond, fresh parsley, salt, white pepper, and wait for it, whipped cream, heavy cream, whipped stiff, folded in gently, At the end, like making mousse, the whipped cream made the salad light and fluffy, almost cloud-like, too airy. For a sandwich filling, the texture was strange, wrong, unnatural, too soft. The flavor was confused, sweet from the grape and the cream, rich from the mayo, savory from the chicken, all fighting for dominance, for attention. It was not bad, just not good, not right, not normal. The sandwich was served at Neiman Market in Texas in the 1950s, created by Helen Corbett, a famous chef. It became iconic, legendary, copied every lunch count, hotel restaurants, country clubs, tea room. Everyone made chicken salad with whipped cream because that was the fancy version, the proper way, the sophisticated way, the 1950s way. The whipped cream version faded quickly, died quick. In the 1960s, when people finally realized whipped cream belongs in dessert, not sandwich, not salad, not savory food, the modern version is simpler, better, more logical. Chicken, mayo, celery, sometimes grape, sometimes almond, sometimes both. Never whipped cream, never again. The texture is chunky, creamy, substantial, normal. The flavor is savory, balanced, with a touch of sweet from the grape. It tastes like chicken salad should taste, like people expect, like makes sense. The chicken salad sandwich survived, thrived, became ubiquitous because it adapted, evolved, changed. It dropped the whipped cream, the weird part, the 1950s part, kept everything else, everything good, became a staple at delis, cafes, sandwich shops, coffee shops, everywhere. But the original 1950s version is gone, dead, buried. Nobody makes with whipped cream anymore. Nobody wants it. With whipped cream, that recipe died when common sense finally won, when sanity prevailed, and whipped cream returned to dessert where it belonged all along. The chicken salad sandwich is one of the few 1950s sandwich that survived, that thrived, but only because it changed, adapted, left behind the weird parts, the wrong parts, and kept the good part, the right part. The modern version bears little resemblance to the 1950s original, except the name, the core idea, the chicken and grapes. The 1950s chicken salad sandwich died, so the modern version could live, could survive, could succeed. Sometimes death is necessary for evolution, for improvement, for survival. Club sandwich is the only 1950s lunch counter sandwich that survived complete, totally, unchanged, unaltered, still served everywhere, still ordered by everyone, still made exact the same way it was made 70 years ago, 80 years ago, more. The club sandwich has 3 layers of toasted bread, white bread, always white, golden brown, crispy. The bottom layer holds sliced turkey and crispy bacon. The middle layer holds crisp lettuce, sliced tomato, and mayonnaise. Spread thick, the top layer completes the structure. Everything is held together with 4 toothpicks, 1 in each quarter, cut into triangles, 4 perfect triangles, served on a plate with potato chips or French fries and a pickle spear. Dill pickle, always dill. The formula never changed, never needed, because it was perfect. From the start, from the beginning, the club sandwich was complete. The combination of turkey and bacon, lettuce and tomato, toast and mayo, worked, just worked. The flavors balance, the textures complement, the presentation impress. It is a complete meal in sandwich form, filling, satisfying, delicious, beautiful. The club sandwich was invented in the late 1800s at private social club in New York, Saratoga Springs. Other cities claim it, but New York won, hence the name club sandwich. From the clubs where wealthy men gathered, ate, drank. By the 1950s, it had moved from elite club to every lunch count in America. Democratized, accessible. It was no longer just for the wealthy, just for members, just for men. Anyone could order a club sandwich for 50 or 75 cents and feel a little fancy, a little special, a little important. The club sandwich survived, thrived, conquered because it was adaptable, flexible, forgiving. You could use chicken instead of turkey, ham instead of bacon, wheat instead of white, avocado added, cheese added. The core concept remained the same. Triple-decker, toasted bread, protein, bacon, vegetables, mayo, cut into quarters, held with toothpick. Modern variation. Add everything. Avocado, sprout, different cheese, chipotle mayo, aioli, Pesto, sriracha, used ciabatta, sourdough, whole grain, instead of white bread, but the structure stays the same. 3 layers, 4/4 toothpicks, the essence, unchanged. The club sandwich, 25 lunch counter sandwiches that defined an era and then disappeared like they never existed. The first 5 were born from desperation and necessity. Jellied organ, eggs mixed with peanut butter and pickle. Frosted loaves disguised as elegant cake. The middle 15 came from convenience and corporate marketing campaign. Canned meat spreads, condensed soup burgers, processed mystery loaf dotted with green olive. The last 5 were real sandwiches that tasted good but faded anyway because tastes changed and traditions died and nobody had time anymore. Only one survived intact and unchanged, the club sandwich. Everything else vanished when lunch counters closed their doors, department stores shuttered their tea rooms, and Woolworths turned off the grill for the last time. Fast food replaced slow service and conversation. Drive-thrus replaced counter stools and waitresses who knew your name. Efficiency replaced the ritual of sitting down and eating food made fresh behind the counter